For years, tech was seen as the safest career path on Earth, a booming industry with endless demand for developers, engineers, and product talent. But in the last few years, that illusion has shattered. One headline after another has shown tech giants cutting thousands of jobs at a time. The year 2023 made this new trend more prominent than ever, with Meta laying off over 21,000 employees, Amazon cutting 27,000 jobs, Google trimming over 12,000 positions, and Microsoft eliminating 10,000 roles. And this trend is far from being over. Just recently, Salesforce has announced further layoffs, after already having fired many people over the past few years. None of these companies are struggling startups. These are the most profitable companies in the world. So, what changed? Why is an industry once defined by limitless growth suddenly firing people at a scale we've never seen before? And more importantly, what are the real forces driving these layoffs? Welcome to Rebel Economics, and thank you for joining me today as we look at what's behind the massive tech layoffs that have been happening over the past few years. Tech is very much still a booming industry. As a matter of fact, the number of occupations in the tech industry are expected to grow 2 times faster than the overall workforce in the next decade. And yet, the year 2025 has seen nearly 246,000 tech employees laid off. And this year's stats are only worse. As of June 2026, meaning in only half a year, over 150,000 tech employees have been laid off. By the end of the year, that will be over 300,000 people working in tech who have lost their jobs, while the industry itself is seen to be expanding. It seems paradoxical, and yet, for hundreds of thousands of people, that has been the reality over the past few years. One of the main reasons we see these massive layoffs is because some of these people shouldn't have been hired in the first place. I'm not speaking of them personally, of course. These people are highly educated, highly trained, and very talented. But all of this just doesn't matter if in the long run they are not needed. And that is exactly what is happening. From 2020 to 2022, many tech companies were increasing their workforce drastically. In the wake of COVID and the pandemic, they saw a huge surge in digital demand. As people were barred from entering the outside world, they turned towards the digital world instead. As in-person human interactions were forbidden, people turned to tech companies like Meta with Instagram and Facebook, or X for that human interaction. When you are not allowed to go outside to go shopping, well, Amazon is right there in the palm of your hand. No matter what area of life you turned to during the pandemic, technology was there. So new people and new brains were needed to keep up with the increasing demand. And the tech giants were more than happy to oblige, seeing this as a new transformation into an even more digital age, assuming that the pandemic may have ushered in this change, but that it would far outlive lockdown. Between 2019 and 2022, Meta nearly doubled its workforce from 44,942 employees to 86,482. This is a 92% increase over a period of just 4 years. And Meta is by far not the only one. During the same time, Amazon hired 810,000 new employees, the largest hiring surge in corporate history. Warehouse expansions, e-commerce explosion, the growth of Amazon Web Services, and increasing need for scaling logistics and deliverability all demanded more people. Google and Microsoft also followed this pattern, with Google adding over 70,000 new jobs from 2019 to 2022, representing a 60% increase in its workforce, and Microsoft hiring 77,000 new employees, being a 53% increase. All of these numbers are pretty crazy, but none of them can compete with Salesforce, which increased its numbers of employees by 110%, more than doubling its workforce. Aggressive acquisitions of new products and integrations like Slack, Tableau, and MuleSoft called for this huge hiring surge, and existing products were in higher demand than ever, with the pandemic-era cloud demand fueling the surge. But when the world reopened and demand normalized, these companies suddenly realized that they had far more employees than they needed. Considering the astronomical hiring spree they went on, it may come to no surprise that when the world went back to normal by 2023, the wave of hiring was followed by a wave of firing. But that was not the only reason for the dramatic shift. For over a decade, from 2009 to 2021, tech companies lived in a world of near zero interest rates. Money was cheap, investors rewarded growth over profit, and companies hired aggressively. But in 2023, interest rates jumped at the fastest pace in 40 years. While in 2021, the federal funds rate was 0 to 0.25%, this paradise for tech companies was about to come to an end. Just a year later, in 2022, the rates were raised 7 times, and by 2023 peaked at 5.25 to 5.5%, the highest they have been since 2001. This was the fastest rate hiking cycle since the 1980s. So, why does this affect tech in particular? Tech boomed in an era of low interest rates, meaning their business model was accustomed to cheap borrowing, relying heavily on investor capital being attracted by long-term growth projections. But when the interest rates rise, borrowing is no longer cheap, and projections and growth simply don't attract investors like they used to. Now, investors want to see profit, not just potential. Future earnings were discounted more heavily, and the value of these tech stocks plummeted. In 2022, the value of Nasdaq fell by 33%, Meta stock by 64%, Amazon by 50%, Google by 39%, and Microsoft by 28%. Without investor support and borrowing money for important things like data centers and cloud infrastructure, these companies knew they had to start cutting costs. This was mainly done by laying off staff and shutting down unprofitable divisions. And as happens so often in history, when it rains, it pours. By 2023, the real AI boom has popped off. The massive breakthrough in large language models, especially the release of ChatGPT, suddenly made AI feel practical, scalable, and commercially valuable. Every major tech company shifted into an AI arms race. Microsoft invested billions into OpenAI. Google launched Bard and later Gemini. Meta released Llama, and Salesforce introduced its AI suite, including Agentforce. This wasn't just a product trend. It triggered a fundamental rethink of how companies operate. Internal AI tools began automating coding, customer support, content generation, and sales workflows. Internal tasks were sped up or directly outsourced to AI. GitHub using Copilot stated that developers complete tasks now 55% faster as AI supports them in their job. And in some teams, 46% of code is now AI generated. So it comes to no surprise that if tasks are completed faster, fewer people will be needed. And this is only one example of many. Google has developed its own internal AI tools to cut code review time by 20 to 30%. And Microsoft reduced routine coding and documentation work by up to 40%. Companies have even stated this openly, with Mark Zuckerberg saying AI will allow us to operate more efficiently with fewer people, and Arvind Krishna, the CEO of IBM, declaring that they expect to replace 7,800 jobs with AI and automation. In one of the more ironic examples, the very engineers that were involved in the building of Salesforce's AI tool Agentforce were then fired because Agentforce was literally taking over their jobs. Apart from the engineers, especially customer support roles were heavily impacted, as the company completely removed the possibility to raise support cases without going through the Agentforce bot first. While in 2023, cost cuts had happened to show profits and become more appealing to investors, this is no longer the case. Tech companies have actually had quite successful years. In 2004, Microsoft delivered $245 billion in annual revenue and $109 billion in operating income, being a record financial performance. Meta hit new all-time highs in gross profit in 2025 with over $164 billion of gross profit, the highest in Meta's history at that point. And 2026 will most likely outperform it to set a new record. But record profits are not a good enough reason to keep people on that you don't need anymore. And tech companies have made that abundantly clear. They are still cutting jobs left and right, leaving many people who had put their trust into tech being a safe job. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education and degree, labored hours and learned new skills on the fly, only to be outperformed by a monster of their own creation. Just because you're in tech doesn't mean you work in AI. And the developers and engineers that worked on other projects felt the shift in priorities more than anyone else. AI was the very hungry caterpillar, and many teams fell victim to satiate its never-ending appetite. Google CEO Sundar Pichai said in 2024 that there would be significant role eliminations due to AI restructuring, and various teams were cut. The same was the case for Microsoft, where in 2024, 1,900 gaming employees were cut, while simultaneously thousands were hired for AI and cloud roles. Over $10 billion were invested into OpenAI and AI infrastructure, pooling resources from other teams and divisions. So yes, the last few years have been rough for the tech world. Layoffs, restructuring, and the rise of AI have made it feel like the ground is constantly shifting under our feet. But this isn't the end of tech jobs, and it's definitely not the beginning of a world where AI replaces everyone. What's really happening is a transition. Companies are learning how to use AI, workers are learning how to work with it, and entire new categories of jobs are emerging that didn't exist even 2 years ago. Every major technological shift, from the internet to mobile to cloud computing, created uncertainty at first, and then created more opportunities than anyone expected. I believe that AI is no different. The people who learn to use these tools, guide them, build around them, and question them will be the ones shaping the next decade of innovation. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay informed about the new videos dropping every week. See you soon, here on Rebel Economics.